1 second. We are pioneers into this auditorium month after month, and to broaden this community that we take great pride in learning from. Before we begin, I would like to quickly draw out what the evening will look like. Our speakers will be speaking for about 30 minutes, after which we will move to a brief Q&A. As the audio features in the space are designed to help moderate voices and their volume, people with questions in that phase can simply raise their hand and we'll promote you as a speaker to ensure that you're heard. After the Q&A, we usually end up hanging out, so feel free to stick around for some social time if you like. Today's talk is titled Tilt Brush by Accident, being delivered by the original creators of Tilt Brush, Patrick Hackett and Drew Skillman, in blue and purple next to me. Would that be called purple? You may know them by their SF-based studio named Skillman and Hackett. In April 2015, 7 months after they had cobbled together a rudimentary system they called Tilt Brush, Google bought their company, and with Google's support, Tilt Brush has attracted a team of developers to evolve into a sophisticated tool for drawing, painting, and even sculpting in space. A bit more about the speakers. There's Drew, who is a creative coder and technical artist. He is a co-creator of Tilt Brush and is currently working on unannounced computer vision and machine learning powered interactive experiences at Google. Prior to diving deep on AR and VR, Drew worked in the games industry for over a decade as a technical artist, visual effects artist, and project lead. Drew applies cross-disciplinary skills including design, visual effects, engineering and physics to create immersive experiences at the bleeding edge intersection of art and technology. And we also have Patrick Hackett, who is an independent game developer, a creative technologist, who prior to diving deep on AR and VR worked in the games industry for over a decade as a gameplay engineer and project lead. Tilt Brush, as some here may already know, was developed as part of different augmented reality, virtual reality, and natural motion experiences at Skillman and Hackett before being acquired by Google. Patrick is also a long-time proponent of rapid prototyping, which I found in a lot of places on the internet. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our guest speakers. Please welcome with a round of applause, Drew Skillman and Patrick Hackett.
Thanks, Anita, and yeah, thanks for the whole more team here for helping us get this thing set up. This is a really fun environment for this talk, so I'm pretty pumped for it. But yeah, as Anita said, my name is Patrick Hackett. That is Drew Skillman. Thank you for coming to Tilt Brush by Accident. So we led you in here telling you this is about Tilt Brush, but really this talk is about our creative process and the creative process that led to Tilt Brush, but also a number of other things. Drew and I, if you read our bios, we have this running joke that our bios are effectively the same because we've been working together for so long, and we've been on the same projects for like a decade. And so over that time, we've been able to, kind of like analyze our creative process, just kind of look at like how we like to work. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to go back, we're going to talk about some work we did at Double Fine, going through the Skillman and Hackett phase into working at Google on Tilt Brush. So, what is it, right? What is this creative process that we're going to talk about? The core of it is fail fast. And you've probably heard this before. It's pretty cliche, to be honest. But we have a tremendous problem with this. And the problem that we have is that we think that this phrase is a bit misdirected. Right? When folks are using it, they're often focused on the wrong side of it. So the idea with failing fast is that you move really quickly, you get all the bad stuff out of that. But in reality, we believe that everything that you're making throughout this time is successful. So we prefer just keep moving. The idea here is that good ideas come from exploration. The faster, the wider you can explore, the more good ideas you're going to find. And in addition to that, there's two other pieces, right? there's embracing uncertainty. So the problem with moving fast and going wide is that your exploration is going to yield results at really inconsistent rates. You'll start over here and you'll be exploring, you're going to end up way over here. But you need to be okay with that. You need to be okay with the fact that what you start on is probably not where you're going to end up. Prototyping cartoons, music videos.
Crowd pleaser.
Whoa. Damn.
Yeah, awesome. Danny, thanks for the art. Sweet. So the title of this talk is Tilt Brush by Accident. And we're finally kind of getting to that part of the story. When we say accident, what we really mean is that it's kind of entirely intentional, that good things come out of this creative process. If you'll kind of allow me, it's really it's an accident that we created Tilt Brush, but it's kind of a totally intentional accident. And I'm going to walk you through some of the early prototypes that kind of set the stage for Tilt Brush. This is a music visualizer we made for the Samsung Gear VR when it was still a development kit. And this was a really kind of formative learning period for us. It was kind of our first opportunity to start building things with the hardware. The catch was this was a mobile phone from 2014. So this thing could do almost nothing. And it forced us to make some really hard design choices around like understanding what would make compelling content in VR and like render at 60 plus frames a second. So you'll notice a bunch of ribbons here. You'll see a lot of like shaders driven by music. There's a bunch of visual effects that are effects layers built up on black. And again, like less obvious, but there's a architecture here, kind of like a rendering approach designed to really embrace what VR can do well with this super limited hardware.
I think that was a Samsung Galaxy 5.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane that VR would run it all on that. I think we still have that in a desk somewhere, desk drawer.
And that's
Another influential prototype was this VR music video authoring tool. And so it used a keyboard mouse interface with a Oculus DK2. So you had 6-stop tracking, but there were no touch controllers yet. And so we were exploring ways of creating that type of an interface. And this GUI we really liked. And it would, even though the music visualizer didn't really ship anywhere, the UI ended up becoming the core kind of UI design in Tilt Brush. And because of the supportive environment that we'd kind of built at this point, it was totally normal for either of us to just take a day or two and work on something weird. And in this case, I was trying to make a VR chess experience where an iPad could be used as interface. So if you picture an iPad that's kind of trapped in the same coordinate space as your VR headset, you could imagine rendering like holographic chess pieces off of the iPad, reaching out with your finger and touching the iPad and using the iPad as like a touch interface. So this was like the weird idea, but things didn't quite go as planned because first thing I ran into in this little experiment was that the iPad I was using did not play nicely with my Windows development environment. So I did have a Wacom tablet at my desk, and so I was like, all right, screw it, we'll just try this experiment with a Wacom tablet instead of an iPad. So now I'm like sketching, or I'm moving these chess pieces around with a pencil, basically, like a stylus. But as so often happens, like things aren't behaving correctly. I can't figure out why the chess pieces are moving in weird directions, and so I stuck a bunch of debug line renderers on them. And kind of unintentionally, had created this weird sketching thing. I wouldn't even call it a prototype at this point. It was just a 6DoF VR headset with a Wacom tablet where you're like drawing really, really simple lines. But it captured our attention immediately. And I showed it to Patrick, and within like less than 24 hours, he threw back a build that had brush selector, brush sizes, color picker, and it looked like this kind of within the first 24 hours or so. It was really primitive, but even in this primitive state, it was awesome. It felt awesome. It felt really special and like really unique. And we decided that we wanted to put all of our time into this. And what was cool is that this happened right before Oculus Connect. And so we had 2 weeks to basically take that prototype and turn it into something that we could show our friends at Oculus Connect. And this is what it turned into. And I think one of the best parts of the creative process we're talking about is that you can go from something that looks very, very simple, like that first sketch prototype, to something much more polished extremely quickly, because you're used to working in this extremely fast, extremely rapid prototyping, way. A few things to highlight here are that you saw in these earlier prototypes. There's the UI, which came from that music visualizer, the rendering approach, which came from the music visualizer, obviously a bunch of trail rendering, gratuitous use of bloom. I'm sorry, I'm guilty. A bunch of additive effects, because it turns out additive effects render really fast in VR because you don't have to sort triangles. So there's like a bunch of these lessons kind of all came together and let us build this really, really quickly. Back to you.
Yes. So I'm going to gloss over a little bit here, right? We're going to jump straight to Google. The pieces that we're glossing over are really just kind of a lot of more work on Tilt Brush. It was 3 or 4 months of development, trying to figure out how to position the thing, how to align it to get it in a place where we could make money off of it. We were running out of money. And then working with Valve to get it ready for the HTC Vive launch. But fast forwarding to Google, the reason that we're skipping over that is because the process didn't really change, right? One of the things that did happen when we went to Google was that our team got a lot bigger, which was great because it means that we can keep prototyping, right? We can prototype more and faster, right? So some ridiculous things we did prototyping at Google. This is GPU particles with some curl noise.
Here, Patrick, I'll interrupt for a sec, because in a bunch of these GIFs, a whole bunch of the Tilt Brush team is out here, and you're going to see yourselves momentarily. Just want to call it out. Hey, guys.
This is a Zoetrope prototype for like testing out different ways that you could potentially animate in a space. Drew flipped the renderer because we wanted to test out building up multiplicative rendering. So this is
I was just going to say, this is the cheapest prototype ever. This was like a invert.
Yeah, it was invert on the screen record.
Yeah, no, we inverted it in the engine, but about the same amount of work.
Yeah, this was an exploration around drawing on a character that you could then pose afterward. This was very cool. This was a prototype I did for Connect the Dots game inside Tilt Brush. It was just about as fun as Connect the Dots is in 2D. So that was good shit. This was a portal brush that used the camera on the front of the Vive, allowed users to peek into the real world. I think this one was shown in a Google blog post a number of years ago. This was a collaboration we did. This was actually part of the Artist in Residence program that Drew will speak to later. Collaboration with Nick Shelton. He wanted to explore fractals inside of Tilt Brush. All the ones that we just showed off didn't ship, maybe obviously, but a lot of the things that we were prototyping did end up shipping. This was probably one of the earlier versions of constraining brushstrokes to a plane, which would eventually turn into the guides feature. This was a really early version of the quick tool interface. This was an early version, yeah, of the audio reactive mode. There was another part to the audio reactive mode where there was it was like a dance floor that you'd stand on. Yeah, so while we were at Google, we were actually trying to formalize this process a little bit. You know, at this point we were really in heavy production on Tiltbrush, but one of the things that we started was prototype December. And so at Google, at least the month of December is generally slow. People on holiday, people taking vacation. And so rather than scheduling formal milestones, we just said, you know, like, the floor is open. Like, make anything you want. And so some of the things that came out of it, this is a very perfect example of how wide it went. This is a simulation of perfect haptics in Tiltbrush by using an electrical current routed through a pencil on a piece of tinfoil. So the brush was tracked by a Vive puck, and then it was attached to an actual pencil, and then there was an electrical current that when you touch the piece of tinfoil, it would complete, and it would send a trigger down message. It was crazy. It was really cool. This was a prototype we did where brushstrokes would become like actual physical objects. I think this one was made by Fernando Romano, who worked with us just for a little bit. These are a couple of explorations of doing Tiltbrush style drawing on a phone in AR. There's actually a healthy push into AR at Google, and so we really tried to figure out if Tiltbrush was something that could, you know, map to phone-based AR. This one was an amazing prototype by Locke, who I believe is in the audience. And so the way that this worked, there was a mural that we got set up within, in our Google offices. There was a large Tiltbrush sketch. It's just a picture of it. And he had a program that the way it worked, when you held up your phone and it scanned the mural, the actual Tiltbrush sketch would come out of the wall, you know, in your phone. But the things that were necessarily limited to Tiltbrush, right? Like, we kind of said, you can do what you want, you know, go in all directions. And so there's a bunch of stranger things. This is something I did that was, it's pretty self-explanatory. There really wasn't much to it. It's just kind of like AR filters on top of the real world. This was a stop-motion animation that Ashley Pinnock did. This was a prototype where it would use speech to text and then put that in a speech bubble that was then placed according to where you were, because it kind of knew where you were from body segmentation, right?
Indeed, Paul was saying, "I am a banana," so it worked.
Yeah, proven that it worked. This is Black Mirror. This is my Black Mirror prototype. There was one that we don't have a GIF of that Jeremy Mitchell, who was on our team, prototyped. That would, whenever you looked at it, it would always put your face half off the screen. So it's like the most infuriating selfie, because you would think you were off camera, and then you turn your phone and you would continue to take it off camera. It's also like a Black Mirror type of thing. And yeah, Drew, I'll let you speak to this one really quick.
This was just another weird experiment. We were playing with, like Patrick said, we were playing with like smartphone AR stuff. So this was using the 6 degree of freedom tracking you get from AR to drive various guitar effects. So you have, 3 positions, you got rotations, and you can kind of like plug these things into any effect that you want and get some very, very, very fun, weird sounds out of it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the downer of the talk. This is where I have to pause, and I have to say that at this point we've been showing off like, oh yeah, you prototype and you go wide and you make all this fun stuff. But this process that we're talking about is very hard, for a few reasons, and they became very apparent to us while we were at Google. And so, as I run through these bullet points, recognize that a lot of these are targeted toward you if you were at a larger company. So the first one, existing product needs can impose hard constraints. And so what that means is that if you are on a team and you would like to explore or prototype in a direction, you have to understand the space that you're in, and probably more importantly, understand what all the other stakeholders need. And so the way that this manifests on Tiltbrush is, like, hey, we're prototyping really deep into VR, but other people care more about AR. Like, you're going to get pushback for doing something like that. This type of process can be really difficult to coordinate across large teams. At one point, Drew tried facilitating like a prototype assembler across multiple teams in multiple locations. It's really difficult. It really is, like this speed decreases with team size type of thing. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. We mentioned this. Uncertainty is uncomfortable for you, but it's very uncomfortable for your bosses. Mostly because it can't be scheduled, right? And so, our remedy for this is show progress early and often. It kind of helps people get on the same page and recognize that there is valuable output coming from this style of working. And getting time and leadership support is not easy. It really takes, like a hierarchy of trust, right? Trust between you in the process, you and your teammates, you with your boss, you with your boss's boss. And that type of trust takes a bit of time to build and maintain. So downer aside, Drew will go back to talking about cool stuff.
Back to the fun stuff. Back to the fun stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to share with you a bunch of art developed through the Artist in Residence program, which was a program designed to give over 60 artists a supportive environment so that they could kind of embrace uncertainty in this new medium the same way that we've been kind of embracing it ourselves. And the hope, in fact, the result was that this work would dramatically influence the development of Tiltbrush. So I'm going to run through, this is from a few years ago, but I'll run through some highlights, and I'm going to kind of point out how it influenced Tiltbrush development, what we learned from these collaborations.
The core of this was 2016, 2017?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It was a brief period of incredible collaborations that I will remember for the rest of my life. It was insane, I guess. Just to not mince words around it. And so here's one to start with. This is Victory Dance, which is created by legendary Disney animator Glenn Keane. And one of the really spectacular things about this is that this was before we had World Transform. And so Glenn actually came and worked with us for a week. Patrick and I just banging on our keyboards, and Glenn was behind us in this space that is, well, exactly the size of this piece of art. That was exactly how much space he had to work in. And you can see the places where he bumped into walls and had to draw along a wall. And he just spent a week in here crawling, climbing, just putting down every single one of these strokes. He probably walked miles to do it. And he gave us a bunch of really, really valuable feedback. This was some of the notes that he would make for us, which really deserve to be framed. This is the type of work that he wanted to make. He would sketch out the type of line work that he wanted to achieve. We had a whiteboard that he would scribble on, and we are fools for not ripping that out of the wall. That's one of my regrets from that time. Another incredible collaboration was with Chris Pranowski, who's the founder and studio president of Titmouse Animation. And Chris made a short comic in Tiltbrush, which was the first of the time. And similar to Glenn's, you had to actually walk through this space. There were, do you remember how many panels? Maybe 36 panels. You can't really see it in this picture, but there are all of these arrows that would lead you through it. You had to go to this panel and read it, and then go to that one. And it really pushed our it pushed like Tilt Brush to the limit, especially around our guide system, because our guide system wasn't fully developed. And as you can see, Chris wanted to actually draw like comics on every single one of these panels. And so we had to do a bunch of work to like develop and support that workflow. Ended up being really, really valuable. He also took incredible notes while we worked with him. And one of the things that I remember laughing so hard at is that the film crew that was taking some shots at the time for some marketing video asked him to like look like he was doing some drawing in his notebook. And so he jotted down, "Write fake notes in notebook. I am writing these notes now," which I just so Chris is the best. So hilarious. We did an experiment with longtime collaborator Tyler Hurd, creator of VR Butts and other fantastic music videos to be specific. In this one, you paint a character and then you press a button and you become that character along with this like really goofy procedural, like kind of cartoonish animation. This one was weird, and turns out if you stick a scan of your face into it, it only gets weirder. This was uncomfortable for everybody, including me. Yep, great dancing there. We worked with Seugwon Chung, a New York-based artist who mixes physical and digital art. And she wanted to bring raw stroke data into her workflows, which we hadn't expected anyone to ask for, but we were totally happy to oblige. And so this collaboration really pushed our export feature forward significantly. And working with artists like Seugwon also encouraged us to conceive of the Tilt Brush Toolkit. And this toolkit is a series of Unity scripts that allow users to import Tilt Brush art into Unity. And then within Unity, you can kind of do practically anything you want with that art. This is an example of one of the early pieces that people made with that. This is Paulo's Wing, which is a game that was actually published to Steam, made with Tilt Brush art. That was from game studio Angry. And we worked with Titmouse Animation again with the band Nightclub to make a 360 music video using the toolkit, which I'll let this play for a second.
That's dope.
This is a really surreal experience, really fun collaboration, and amazingly, this thing has like over 42 million views, which it's kind of mind-blowing.
It's a good song.
Yeah, it's a catchy song. Use this song in a lot of internal videos. So that was the band Nightclub. If I didn't say that, that was Nightclub. Okay, another incredible artist we worked with was Peter Chan. We knew Peter from our days at Double Fine, and like Glenn, he's kind of a legend his work has powered, work has been behind a bunch of video games and Hollywood movies, including Brutal Legend, which is where we met him. And this piece called The Rescue took about a week of extremely long days, and it was one of the most impressive and honestly surprising pieces of work that we've ever seen come out of Tilt Brush. The thing that was really cool about this one is that Peter was crafting this massive scene while we were developing the transform tools. So we would do some work on the transform tools. Peter would like kind of evolve this art piece, give us feedback, and we went back and forth over the course of about a week. And it was really powerful to see the art evolve along with the tools evolution. Definitely extremely fun way to work if you have the opportunity. Recurring theme you'll begin to notice is that these exceptional artists all make exceptional notes that I think we still have somewhere and need to be framed. And Peter was initially skeptical of working in VR, but he really warmed up to it, working on that last piece, and he proposed a much larger project called A Show of Kindness. So this is a cool trailer that is both beautiful, and again pushed Tilt Brush to the limit in terms of scene complexity. But what you're watching here is also a bunch of offline rendering capabilities and camera padding that we added to Tilt Brush so that we could actually capture this and share it with the world. So it kind of had two, served two purposes in that respect. But you can see the phenomenal level of detail that he was able to pull off with this. And working on these longer narrative form experiences was something that was really interesting to us. And so we reached out to another awesome video game character artist, Jay Doherty, to explore one of these larger pieces. And Jay's idea was to make a Mad Lib style story where the user kind of was asked to draw objects that would then appear in the story itself. So here's a GIF that kind of shows the Mad Lib creation and then how it appears in the narrative. And you can find both of those experiences, the Show of Kindness, on Steam, by the way. They're free. And this is where Tiltbrush is at now. So it's open sourced as of recently. And obviously our hope is that the way that we've been able to embrace uncertainty in this new medium, now anyone who wants to can, and they can use Tiltbrush as a starting point to kind of keep this journey going. We were both very, very happy that this is not the end of the road, but actually just the next chapter.
So that's like getting to the end of our talk. The Tiltbrush development stopped a little bit ago, and Drew and I had the pleasure of working together again in an R&D space. And I'm sorry about the tease, but we continue to use this process, but we worked on a bunch of stuff that is unannounced, unreleased at this point, so we don't have any awesome gifts to show. But it's not really a talking point, right? Like this is how we like to work, and it also has proven successful for us. So really, just in summary, just keep moving, right? Like good ideas come from exploration. The faster and wider you can explore, the more good ideas you're going to find. And then, embracing uncertainty, your progress, exploring it, it's going to ebb and flow. You're going to have things that feel like successes. You're going to have things that feel like failures, but that's part of it. That's part of the fun of it. And make sure you build up a nice, supportive environment for yourself. That's the people around you. That's the tools you're using. That's, your mental health. That's everything, right? And that is it for our talk. So I know we're going to do some Q&A. The more folks are going to facilitate it a bit. So we will see how that is going to happen.
And in the meantime, again, like so much of that work was done by like the team. The supportive environment Patrick talked about, like familiar faces are out there. The folks that we did all this work with, it is, like you said, everything. The people that you surround yourself with, it makes or breaks it. And warm and fuzzies, you guys.
Warm and fuzzies.
Thank you so much, Drew and Patrick. It's always been a real pleasure to hear about the delightful Tiltbrush journey in the news and now from the creators themselves. So let's open this up to some questions from our audience who would like to start. If you could just wave your hand and, yeah. There's some more over there.
Yeah.
So my question is, now this approach is open source. What would you two like to see people do with it?
I'll go real fast because I have been so blown away by what's already been done. It's like I haven't even really gotten to what I hope next happens, because what people have already done would have been my answer to that, which is insane. It's like blows my mind. How many of these prototypes that we weren't able to finish and that now like the community has built from scratch far better than like we were in a position to. So that's my quick response.
Yeah, I think that's it too. Part of the open source is just getting is the product in a place that we always thought it should be. Just a bit more open. Part of it was making sure that it didn't die inside of Google. But honestly, Drew said it. My biggest hope was that the code base was out there in case I needed to reference it. That's it. Everything else that's happened is well beyond what we really expected. So.
I think Danny Pittman has a question. You want to just start again, Danny? Just so everyone can hear you.
Hey, so I didn't really know, but that you guys did so much prototyping outside of Tiltbrush while you're working on Tiltbrush, so that was really cool to see. But it's also cool, like, open sourcing it now causes the whole community to start prototyping their own ideas and features for Tiltbrush. So, like, how do you feel about it branching so much into not just one unified Tiltbrush, but like thousands of different versions?
Yeah, good question.
That one's a little bit tricky, right? Like it's kind of up to the community to decide that. You know, there was a feature that I pushed on for years, off and on, that never got out. It was called Brushlab, and in one of the earliest prototypes of Tiltbrush back in the Skillman and Hackett days, you could create your own brushes. It was just a data folder in the Tiltbrush folder, and you know, you throw some textures in there and some other junk, and then that is what your brushstroke would be, right? And we pared all that down because it was sloppy prototype code, and we wanted to get a more firm shipping product out. And so there's this idea to always come back to that, right? Like allowing people to create their own brushes inside Tiltbrush. But there was this problem. There was that problem of like fragmentation and how you solve that, and like answering your question though, I think I would like to see people take the Tiltbrush code base and turn it into their own products, right? And if that would like necessarily mean that it's going to be fragmented, you know, like if someone takes it and then this is a really terrible example, but like makes a video game out of it, right? Like then that has to be fragmented from the people that are exploring, you know, I don't know, more sculptural drawing or something like that. Yeah.
And I would agree with that. I think the thing I would add is that as long as, like, it was so painful to have to say no to things when we were working on Tiltbrush because we had a product that had users and it had art that we needed to preserve. And you'll notice, if you pay attention, like Patrick mentioned, in, I don't know, 2017, all brush development stopped because that's when we released poly support. And as soon as poly support existed, like, you couldn't really make new brushes without a massive amount of overhead and complexity. And so it kind of like cut off this branch of exploration that has always, I think, bothered both of us, that like brush development should not have stopped at that point, but it had to due to like product realities. So I in a perfect world, I think there would be a version of Tiltbrush that is like the stable foundation that evolves and matures and is always there for people to branch and do crazy stuff off of. The only thing I would be sad about is if things were so fragmented that when like you or anyone or I wanted to start a new Tiltbrush like branch of doing some weird thing, that it like wasn't really clear like where to start. That would be my only concern, really. But I have a sigh of relief knowing that all the weird things that we wanted to do are now possible, and it will lead to like, you know, it's like massive fragmentation on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's like, no, each of them is just going to be its own art project. And that's kind of awesome.
Right. Well, thank you so much for open sourcing it and talking. That's really cool. I'm excited to see what everyone does.
Sweet.
I'm just going to go to Greg here, if I could. Just a moment.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi.
Great, thank you. Greg Panos here. So I've been working a lot in the last few years with 3D scanner data out in the wild and all the different techniques that allow you to create raw point clouds. And my first instinct was to go to Tiltbrush to try to import a raw point cloud without having to polygonize it. So there are other platforms that I could actually do that. It does various kinds of polygonization on the fly, so you can work with it. So you can, Neos VR is one of them. But I always found the sort of import constraints for Tiltbrush to not be particularly expansive. And then once they added poly, then there were a couple of more hoops that you had to jump through to be able to get something in there. And with all the uptake of Tilt Brush being such a well-adapted tool for artistic development, and now the trend of 3D depth cameras appearing on iPhones and iPads and LiDAR, and it's just pretty clear to me that people are going to start capturing people and places and things out in the wild much more frequently. And the first thing they're going to want to do is to bring them into a wonderful creative environment like Tilt Brush, to paint around them or clean them or patch them up. Maybe easier than some of the other tools that Facebook has, like Medium and the like. It just seemed very wieldy. Have you played around? I know I saw a little depth camera example with, I don't know whether it was a Kinect or whatever earlier on. Was that experimentation, within the Tilt Brush framework, or was that just sort of early stuff you were playing with? And did you have any thoughts about going beyond that when you were at Google, the Tango was going on, and there were depth cameras that you could create data with and the like? So maybe you could talk about point clouds and the like.
Yeah. I
You froze?
He what?
Maybe Drew's headset fell off. I will, believe in me.
Do you want to field that question?
Yeah, no, of course. So there's a couple parts to it, right? Like the playing with depth clouds, point fields, things like that. I will leave for Drew because he spent more time doing that than I have. The one thing that I will address though is the model import in Tilt Brush, probably because it was my fault. There was a lot of features that we discussed on Tilt Brush, and that we even prototyped parts of, but didn't make it into the product because we tried to keep the product the most user-friendly for folks new to VR. Like, Tilt Brush came out at a time where it was one of three things. You pair it with the blue Tilt Brush and maybe something like a Space Pirate Trainer or, like an action game that came out at the time. And that was what you showed your friends and family the first time they tried out room scale VR. And that was a big important part of the project for us, and we didn't ever want to lose it. And so whenever we made new things, advanced features, we kind of tucked them in the back corner. If you follow Tilt Brush over the years, saw it through the UI design on how we added layers to the UI. And at one point, 2018-ish, we added beginner and advanced style of UI. So when you first boot in, you're in beginner mode. And some of the features are locked out or they're hidden behind a wall because we wanted that onboarding experience, that first run, to just be, it's the simplest tutorial. It's what was it? Point. Oh my God, I can't remember. But it was like one thing, and then suddenly you're in this room with a glowing light stroke. And anyway, so getting back to model import. Model import is one of these things where when you bring it in, there's a number of different ways you can bring it in. Are you going to use real world scale? If you do that, then you have to worry about very tiny models, and you have to worry about very large models. There was no in Unity, you have the inspector panel, which is independent of the game scene, and the inspector panel has a bunch of numbers that you can tune, and you can use a keyboard. We didn't have any of that stuff. We didn't want to build any of that stuff. And so when you bring a model in, we want it to be kit bashing. We want it to be, kind of dead simple. And so what you lose in that is you lose all the precision. You lose the ability to, snap it to an axis or get the exact unit of measure. And so when people do things like they scan real world objects and they bring it in because they want to do architectural visualization or something like that, Tilt Brush falls down pretty hard. And unfortunately, that was a very conscious decision. You okay, Drew? Okay, I can't hear you.
Oh no. Woo!
You're muted. You're unmuted. Still can't hear you.
Well, maybe we'll move to the next question. I think Toshi has a question.
Hey guys, Toshi Hu here. First of all, thanks for sharing your processes and how you work and for creating Tiltbrush, and also for releasing it to the world to be allowed to other folks to be creative with it. I've been most excited about the social aspect of multi-brush, and currently working with a team right now of art therapists to develop a pilot for helping folks who are being released from prison transition to their new life, and in fact imagine new possible futures for themselves. But my question is, we knew you were teasing multiplayer for many years, but it never. I'm curious why it didn't happen and why it took open sourcing to make it happen.
Yeah, I would love to tell that story right now. Hey, first of all, the work that you just said you're doing sounds amazing. So congratulations on that. The multiplayer thing, yeah. The multiplayer thing was a product of being at a large company with a lot of different interests. Like I said, we were doing a lot of prototyping. It happened that there was a co-presence team within like the Google Daydream org, right? And they were spinning up and they were trying to address this problem at a platform level, the Daydream platform level. And they wanted a real product to work with. A mature product, and Tiltbrush was the most mature thing that Daydream had at the time. And so, it was like this joint collaboration between our team and their team, kind of to spin up their effort. And so we worked with them for a little bit. We got a proof of concept, and we helped shake out some of their bugs. And then there was some like recordings taken of it, and there was a blog post that was published. And I'm not going to put all the blame on leadership because we certainly agreed to all of it. But the messaging around the blog post was, look at these cool explorations. These things are going to have these things. But for us, internally, it was, no, these are just things that we do. Like, I actually think that same blog post was the one where we had the, using the Vive camera, the camera on the front of the Vive to peek into the world. And it's like, well, these are just things that we're doing. But the messaging went out to everyone that was, like, hey, multiplayer is coming. And then it's this weird thing where you're trying to maintain a product. You're trying to not get fired, right? Like if you tell your community, hey, that blog post that Google just posted, nah, we're not actually doing that. It was a really awkward situation for us. For years, we had to just deal with people. Anytime we push on a new build, and it's like, oh, cool, you guys added, whatever we had camera paths. Well, where's my multiplayer? It's like, it was never in the plans.
I'm curious why it wasn't in the plans, though. Why was multiplayer not something you guys were interested in?
There were people on our team that were very, very, very interested in it. It's just the realities of production in Google. The number of users we had at the time in those early days didn't really justify the amount of work that would have needed to go in to do it. And then the trajectory of VR within Google was in a way that our resources kept depleting as we continued to look at this type of effort. And it didn't make sense. And then 3 or 4 months later, well, it really didn't make sense because now, 3 people had to roll off the team or something like that. And it was a thing that could just never get traction. Yeah, it's frustrating.
Do you enjoy multi-brush now, though?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I think we have a question from Sabby, whose work was actually featured in the presentation. I'm just going to make her a presenter and unmute her so that she can be heard. Okay, speak, Sabby.
Hello.
Hey, we can hear you. You might have to speak up though. You're very quiet for some reason.
Oh. Hi,
There we go.
everyone. Hi, Patrick. And, well, it's more like a comment, just sort of like a huge thank you for creating Tiltbrush. And as you see, like, so many people have used it in so many different ways. And also, thank you so much for your support for the open source. And even on socials, I'm still like touched when I see you guys posting stuff like, hey, here's an idea, you know, try this, we tried this, and whatnot. So I think it's more just like, thank you both, Drew and Patrick, like so much for just having your heart in it and being so involved even at this point. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, this one is a bit awkward for me when Tiltbrush was shutting down. I sent an email to the team, and I tried to put things in context of like, you know, the thing that we made like was really special, right? Like a lot of people have taken, well, a lot of people have like made careers off of it, right? Like, not even work. Like it was very special to them. But Drew and I worked on it independently for not very long. Like there are people that are in this audience that worked on it for like 4 years, 4.5 years. You know, so like Drew and I worked on it together for, I don't know, 7 months, 8 months before we joined Google, and then the rest of the team jumped in and built the thing up. And so like, you know, thank you very much for that. But like it wasn't us. I mean, I got to Google. I had a baby, and I didn't work on the product for. But yeah, anyway, so thank you, and really like congratulations to the team, everybody that worked on it, and then all the community gave us the most ridiculously great positive feedback for years, and so you know it was awesome to be able to build it with everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for the feed. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me again?
Yeah, you're good now.
Oh, my audio's back. Sweet. Well, definitely. I'm glad my audio's on, so I can say thank you for the extremely kind words. Definitely echo Patrick's sentiment. Like we said earlier, it's like so much around who you're surrounded by, and working on Tiltbrush is such a dream project that I definitely take no credit for it. It's like, if a dream project landed in my lap, I'm gonna say yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like, just anything that lets you make cool things with amazing people is a special moment in time, and I think that it's something that's common to like everyone I've met who cares about, you know, like making with these new tools, cares about Tiltbrush art and the other VR art that's out there. It's a really special group of people. If I can cry because I'm in a headset,
yeah,
so no one can see.
Colin can add it to your
Medra here, who has a question?
Hello. Thank you for making such a wonderful tool. It's so lovely. This question's a little bit different in terms of building a supportive environment. What role did you all play in building the environment that was supportive, and how did you go about doing that, if so? Like as far as teams and things like that.
Did Drew disappear again?
No, I went down to get closer. I'm having kind of a hard time hearing, so I was trying to like buddy up next to you, but I heard enough. It would have been creepy anyway. You're asking this question, then all of a sudden there's someone like right next to you, like sticking their face in your face.
Talk in my ear. You want to answer that? You want me to?
So just to make sure I heard, the question was, what were some of the things we did to like help make a supportive environment?
Yeah. Like a team of supportive people, a supportive environment, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I guess one thing I would say is making it okay to making sure that it's okay to fail and that it's okay to just try things. Like something we've talked about a lot is there's something of like, I've never done improv, but like I think it's hilarious, and I know enough about it to know that there's like the yes and kind of mentality. So that's something that I think we really try to bring through in like any team that we're on, is like the get people contributing great ideas and make sure that it's expected that a good idea is going to come from anywhere and anyone, and that there's nothing that makes, you know, my ideas better than Patrick's ideas, better than anyone else's ideas. It's like making a space where everybody can throw the ideas out, and then collectively we can kind of like figure out what's best. And that's something that I've seen go really poorly in some scenarios. So that's the thing that comes to mind that I think we've really tried to prioritize. And any time that it's happened, it's felt right. You know, you're sitting around, you're trying to solve a problem, and everybody's throwing out crazy ideas, and you're riffing on each other, and like that's the way it should feel. It shouldn't feel like there's any more process needed than that.
Yeah, like building a good team is really hard. Like if you're in a position where you're hiring for a team, hiring is really hard. Paul Dubois, who was on our team for many years, and he should be around here somewhere, would often you're in his personal space.
I know, by design.
Would often ask candidates. Forgive me if I butcher this, Paul, but you know, like, what is your superpower? Like, what is the thing that you can bring to this team that nobody else on the team has? And actually, now that I say it out loud, I'm not entirely sure we asked the candidates that. It was more of a thing that we discussed after we all met the person. You know, it's like, what is this person going to bring to the team that gives it a wider, you know, range of voices, just a more diverse environment. And so finding those people, finding the people that, you know, are of this, of kind of the same mindset, but bring some, you know, vastly different perspective is difficult. And then the other thing that I would comment on is a lot of the like behaviors, a lot of like the cultural things that we did running the Tilt-Brush team were stolen directly from Double Fine. Tim Schafer is he's a very creative, great human being that built a successful company that has lasted 20-some years in San Francisco, making largest indie games. It's like the hardest environment to run a company, and he ran a great company that had an unbelievable culture while we were there. And so, when we moved, being independent, it's two of us, we don't really need the culture there. But going to Google, we just stole a lot of the ideas. We just tried to make it more like Double Fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
So we have a question from Keith here, and I have a quick question before him. I'm just going to jump in the queue, recklessly abuse my powers. I was just wondering, what were some of the challenges, or maybe the biggest challenge, even though that's a hard question, the biggest challenge you found going from a small team to a large team, and how did you task everyone on a larger team in a way that you found to be effective?
Small team to large team, going from Skillman and Hackett to Google in terms of team size wasn't too strange for us, because we spent a number of years at Double Fine. Both Drew and I had been project leads, and so we're kind of familiar with an environment where you are a peer to someone, but you are also defining what their work is. Drew was the project lead of Connect Party, and I was gameplay programmer. Years later, I was project lead of Dropboard. Drew was doing visual effects for it. And so we kind of swapped roles. And then we ran the Tilt-Brush team very much like a video game studio or video game team, even though that was very opposite to the way that a lot of the Google teams run, both to benefit and detriment. And then in terms of how to assign tasks, I don't know. It was pretty fluid. We tried to have we tried to take as much input from the community as possible. We tried to allow folks to prototype as much as possible. And then we tried to just collate the best ideas and what we thought was best for the product, and then bubble those up into 6-8 week milestones. I think we talked a little bit more highly of the process than it played out in practice. Like, it was pretty messy at times, but yeah, I don't know if there was anything magical to it. To be totally fair, it's the first time I've ever worked on a live product. Like, everything I'd done up until that point was a video game where you have pre-pro, you have production, you crunch, you get the thing out the door, you have a launch party, you move on to the next one. This was the first time that I was in a position where I was fielding feedback from people and pushing updates. It was different.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd add to that is it was, we really did stick to, like, these 2-week sprints. Kind of, we always had something we wanted to make, and I think that's what made it, honestly, the process relatively straightforward, because the whole team we were all excited about the things we wanted to do. There were too many things to do and not enough time, so it became the challenge was just, as a team, figuring out what we wanted to work on first. And the reason that I think your second part of the question didn't really apply is that the minute that our team became significantly bigger than a small team, like to where like you might need to have a little more structure, the team broke in half. And so I actually took half of the team to go do some like smartphone AR development stuff that turned into like the Playground Pixel app. And Patrick stayed on the tilt brush boat, and like so actually like the size of the team was actually relatively consistent throughout, I think, despite the fact that a bunch of people joined the team, including us, to make tilt brush as fantastic as possible, and it was a disappointment when like that couldn't be the case. It gets back to those scary red slides that Patrick shared halfway through the presentation. Is kind of what happened. Like the mood. That feels better. Yeah, thanks for the question. Was there another one?
About working with all these different artists, and you definitely mentioned their notes was probably maybe one that you kind of picked up on. Were there other things that you picked up from the artist, whether it was directly related to their art or that you integrated into some process that you did? Like, what were some of those lessons that you learned?
I mean, the one that I would say isn't really a lesson about tilt brush, but maybe more of a life lesson. Okay.
Tilt brush, because I'm sure there were tons of lessons and things that were learned just with working with those people.
Yeah, I think the thing that was the craziest is, I mean, I can't believe that we got to spend this period of years working with so many of these amazing artists. And the thing that really struck me is that these people are not magic, even though they seem magic. They are just unbelievably driven and hardworking. It's like mind-blowing. And I mean, I know a lot of folks in this audience fit that same criteria because like you guys worked with you enough to know. It's like astonishing to me the level of intensity that these people bring to their work. It is absolutely mind-blowing, to the point that it's like physically, like people were, and again, I know folks in this room have been in the same situation, like in VR so long, like crawling, like hurting yourself in order to like realize this creative vision, even though the medium's never existed before. It's like you've never picked up one of these things ever, and yet you're like crafting gorgeous art in it. So I don't know, that's probably the single thing that's going to leave the biggest lasting impression on me. Is that kind of unexpected common thread that you see when you like get to work alongside these people. This like shared passion that is kind of, well, intimidating. It's amazing.
Yeah, we were a bit unprepared for how deep the Artists in Residence program went. Tori Voigt, who was our program manager, who was in charge of it, did like an overwhelming job, and we had a lot of artists coming in all the time. And there was a point a couple months in that we had this conversation of like, we got to pump the brakes on this thing, because everybody that comes in wants scale and transform. Everybody that comes in wants, you know, like the exact same tools, and it's like, we got to slow this thing down so that we have time to build these things, and then we can, you know, continue to rev with these artists, you know, like not burn it out too quickly. But next time.
Yeah, great question. Sweet.
I'm just going to go through some of the rooms, guys, and see if there's anybody who has a question. It'll just take me a second, but if you want to scoot as well or stop answering questions, just let me know. We really appreciate your time here, and I understand that you've been here a while. So.
No. My only regret is that I don't know if I can smoothly open this beer.
Yeah, you see my hand there?
And I'm also now afraid of turning myself in circles and unplugging my cord again, like I did earlier.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I got one more question. That's cool.
We've got one more question here, folks.
Cool.
From Matt Foreman.
Hey guys, Matt here again. Kind of looking toward the future. Do you guys have any ideas on what the next generation of in-VR content creation tools might look like? I mean, obviously you're aware of Facebook. A lot of their process revolves around primitives and even some scripting that's done in VR. But I mean, even beyond that, looking toward the future, I mean, you guys had thought of even some wild ideas. I mean, one idea that comes to mind for me is maybe implementing machine learning in the content creation process. But yeah, I don't know. I was just wondering if you guys even have any abstract thoughts about that.
I'll just jump in really quick. This is kind of a different answer for that, but I expected there to be more at this point. Like yeah, there was a period of time in like 2016-ish where I was like, all right, you know, like Tiltbrush has got a good foothold, good mind share, but we got that are going to be doing different things, and they got to learn from us, and they got to do things better, right? And then a lot of them came out, and then a lot of them went away. I'm not gonna, you know, like I know some of those were budget things. I know some of them was VR Winter. I know some of them just didn't get a foothold. And I do think that Tiltbrush is interesting in that a large part of its success, I believe, is in the playfulness of it. It is not in the like. It's like ability to solve a content creation problem. It's like a fun thing that you can do, and then it has a bunch of tools that allow you to like build off of that. And so when you ask about like what content creation application is going to come out in VR that is going to, you know, change things or whatever, you either need to address it from the way that Tiltbrush did, of like, well, what's a playful thing that you can do in VR that you can't do on a 2D screen or, you know, in another thing, or it's, you know, what problem are you solving?
Sorry, Matt, you were echoing, so I just turned your volume down a bit.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would, I guess the only specific thing I would ask for, I suppose, is that I think there's going to be a really like one of the cool things about VR is that it's all, well, it's virtual. It's like entirely do anything. And I think there's going to be a really fun intersection when VR reconnects with reality, and like some people call it mixed reality. I think, you know, I'm not like a huge proponent of AR, but like there's this kind of back and forth that I think is going to happen, where the boundaries get a little bit looser, and in particular, like I'm a huge fan of like laser cutters and 3D printers and digital fabrication, and I think like what happens in VR is going to start to happen in reality. It's like it's going to become more fluid, like the back and forth, and like there was a question earlier, I think from Greg around like scanning and like scanning stuff and bringing it into VR and then making changes and then bringing it back into the real world. Like this is a cycle that I'm super excited about. And I also know that there are some people in this audience doing really cool work that I won't speak to, but if you ask around, you might get some nuggets. No spoilers, but yeah, it's cool. And as Patrick mentioned, like the Medium team, like all those people are like super close to us. The Medium team, there was a period where it was Double Fine and then our office, which was a block away. Like Patrick and I worked in my apartment, and then a block from there was the Medium, like sharing ideas and like talking about stuff in the early days. I hear Winnie, I think. Is that Winnie? Anyway, I'll stop there, but I think there's a bunch of really cool stuff that is on the horizon, is my hope.
I think I'm just going to use my powers and free both of you from this forbidden forest up there and relieve you of your roles as presenters, and we could just have a social gathering.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.